What clues, if we are trying to test out this bizarre theory, should we be on the alert for?
Philip K. Dick was never a scientist in the formal sense, but many argue that his ideas operated like scientific propositions, disguised as fiction.
Perhaps we could say that herewith we suddenly decipher the elliptical utterances which Christ expressed regarding the kingdom of God, specifically where it is located.
He questioned the nature of reality, identity, time, and consciousness.
Christ and St. Paul both seem to say emphatically that an actual breaking through into time,
with an intensity that paralleled serious philosophical and cognitive inquiry.
May I tell you how much I appreciate your asking me to share some of my ideas with you. The title of my address is, "If You Find This World Bad, You Should See Some of the Others." The subject of this speech is a topic which has been discovered recently and which may not exist at all. I may be talking about something that does not exist. Therefore, I'm free to say everything or nothing. I can hardly make an error if there is no such thing as orthogonal time. Orthogonal or right-angle time is the topic of my speech. We are accustomed to supposing that all change takes place along the linear time axis, from past to present to future. The present is an accrual of the past and is different from it. The future will accrue from the present on and be different yet. That an orthogonal or right-angled time axis could exist, a lateral domain in which change takes place,
long before terms like simulation hypothesis or constructed reality entered mainstream discussion, Dick was already exploring worlds where perception could not be trusted.
Processes occurring sideways in reality, so to speak. This is almost impossible to imagine. How would we perceive such lateral changes? What would we experience? What clues, if we are trying to test out this bizarre theory, should we be on the alert for? In other words, how can change take place outside of linear time at all, in any sense, to any degree? Let me present you with a metaphor. Let us say that there exists this very rich patron of the arts. Every day on the wall of his living room above his fireplace, his servants hang a new picture, each day a different masterpiece, day after day, month after month. Each day the used one is removed and replaced by a different and new one. I shall call this process change along the linear axis. But now let us suppose the servants temporarily running out of new replacement pictures. What shall they do in the meantime?
And where technology blurred the line between the real and the artificial. His work treated reality not as a fixed constant, but as something fragile.
You can't just leave the present one hanging. Their employer has decreed that perpetual replacement, that is to say, changing the pictures, is to take place. So they neither allow the current one to remain, nor do they replace it with a new one. Instead, they do a very clever thing. When their employer is not looking, the servants cunningly alter the picture already on the wall. They paint out a tree here, they paint in a little girl there, they add this, they obliterate that, they make the same painting different, and in a sense new, but as I'm sure you can see, not new in the sense of replacing it. The employer enters his living room after dinner, seats himself facing the fireplace, and contemplates what should be, according to his expectations, the new picture. What does he see? It certainly isn't what he saw previously.
At the time, much of the scientific community viewed Dick as a brilliant storyteller, but an unreliable thinker.
But also, it isn't somehow, and here we must become very sympathetic with this perhaps somewhat stupid man, because we can virtually see his brain circuits striving to understand. His brain circuits are saying, yes, it is a new picture. It is not the same one as yesterday. But also it is the same one, I think. I feel on a very deep intuitive basis. I feel that somehow I've seen it before. I seem to remember a tree, though, and there is no tree. Now, perhaps if we extrapolate from this man's perceptual mentational confusion to the theoretical point I was making about lateral change, you can get a better idea of what I mean. I mean, perhaps you can, to at least a degree, see that although what I'm talking about may not exist, my concept may be fictional, it could exist. It is not intellectually self-contradictory. Contemplating this possibility of a lateral arrangement of worlds,
His later life mystical experiences, claims of higher intelligences, and metaphysical revelations caused many academics to dismiss him as unstable rather than visionary.
a plurality of overlapping Earths along whose linking axis a person can somehow move, can travel in a mysterious way from worse to fair to good to excellent. Contemplating this in theological terms, perhaps we could say that herewith we suddenly decipher the elliptical utterances which Christ expressed regarding the kingdom of God, specifically where it is located. He seems to have given contradictory and puzzling answers. But just suppose for an instant, that the cause of the perplexity lay not in any desire on his part to baffle or to hide, but in the inadequacy of the question. My kingdom is not of this world, he is reported to have said. The kingdom is within you, or possibly it is among you. I put before you now the notion, which I personally find exciting, that he may have had in mind that which I speak of as the lateral axis of overlapping realms, which contain among them a spectrum of aspects ranging from the unspeakably malignant to the beautiful.
His questions were considered too speculative, too subjective, and too untethered from empirical method.
And Christ was saying over and over again that there really are many objective realms, somehow related, and somehow bridgeable by living, not dead men, and that the most wondrous of these worlds was a just kingdom, in which either he himself or God himself or both of them ruled. And he did not merely speak of a variety of ways of subjectively viewing one world. The kingdom was and is an actual different place at the opposite end of continua, starting with slavery and utter pain. It was his mission to teach his disciples the secret of crossing along this orthogonal path. He did not merely report what lay there. He taught the method of getting there. But, tragically, the secret was lost. The enemy, the Roman authority, crushed it, and so we do not have it. But perhaps we can re-find it, since we know that such a secret exists.
Science favored equations and experiments. Dick offered paranoia, doubt, and thought experiments wrapped in narrative.
Kingdom is ever to be established here on earth, or whether it is a place or state we go to after death. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that this issue has been a fundamental one and an unresolved one throughout the history of Christianity. Christ and St. Paul both seem to say emphatically that an actual breaking through into time, that is specifically what they say, a breaking through into time, into our world, by the host of God, will unexpectedly occur. Thereupon, after some exciting drama, a 1,000-year paradise, a rightful kingdom will be established, at least for those who have done their homework and chores and generally paid attention, have not gone to sleep, as one parable puts it. We are enjoined repeatedly in the New Testament to be vigilant, that for the Christian it is always day. There is always light by which he can see this event when it comes. See this event. Does that imply that many persons who are somehow asleep or blind or not vigilant, they will not see it even though it occurs?
As a result, his ideas lived largely outside formal scientific discourse, while quietly influencing generations of thinkers on the margins.
Consider the significance which can be assigned to these notions. The kingdom will come here unexpectedly. This is always stressed. The rightful faithful shall see it, because for them it is always daytime. But for the others, what seems expressed here is the paradoxical but enthralling thought that, and hear this and ponder, the kingdom were it established here would not be visible to those outside it. I offer the idea that in more modern terms, what is meant that some of us will travel laterally to that better world, and some will not. They will remain stuck along the lateral axis, which means that for them the kingdom did not come, not in their alternative world. And yet, meantime, it did come in hours. So it comes, and yet it does not come. Amazing.
Experiments during the past decade have also shown that separate particles can influence each other again over enormous distances as if they were endowed with a kind of an ESP. So these and similar experiments have befuddled scientists for decades. Some of the greatest physicists have described them as impossible to intuit. How can quantum physics be so impervious to metaphor, to visualization, and language? Amazingly, if you accept a life-created reality at its face value, all of it becomes straightforward to understand. So take the undeniable logic, or the seemingly undeniable logic, that your kitchen is always present. You think that its contents assume its familiar shapes and colors, whether or not you're in it. But consider, the shapes, colors, and forms known as your kitchen are seen because the particles of light from the overhead bulb bounce off the various objects and then interact with your brain through a complex set of retinal and neural intermediates.
In Lanza's view, life and consciousness are not mere byproducts of the physical universe.
But on its own, as you heard from the previous speaker, is that light doesn't have any color, nor any brightness, nor any visual characteristics at all. It's merely an electrical and electromagnetic phenomenon. So you might think that the kitchen was there in your absence, but unquestionably, the reality is that nothing remotely resembling what you perceive as your kitchen could possibly be there without your consciousness interacting with it. Quantum physics comes at it from a much harder angle and arrives at the same conclusion. So at night, you click your lights off and you leave for the bedroom. And of course the kitchen is there unseen all through the night, right? So, in fact, the refrigerator, it turns out, the stove, and everything in your kitchen are composed of a shivering swarm of energy. And the results of quantum physics, such as the two-hole experiment and others, tell us that not a single one of those particles in any of those objects actually exists in a definite space until you observe them.
They are, instead, the very foundation from which the universe emerges.
So when the discovery of the Earth, that it wasn't flat, challenged the way people perceived themselves and their relationship with the surroundings. Our ancestors were challenged to believe that the Earth was round, even though the ground they walked on was flat. And nothing in everyday experience revealed anything about the truth of this idea. So if the Earth was really round, it was argued that people at the bottom would fall off. So it was considered complete nonsense 500 years ago. So likewise, biocentrism is turning the world upside down again, with the seemingly simple idea that the universe arises from life, not the other way around. So switching the perspective of the universe from physics to biology undoes everything we know about the universe and life in it. We think that life is just an accident of physics, but a long list of experiments suggests exactly the opposite. Amazingly, if you add life and consciousness to the equation, you can explain some of the biggest puzzles in science. For instance, it becomes clear why space and time, indeed the properties of matter themselves, depend on the observer.
This radical idea has positioned him at the forefront of debates about the nature of reality.
Rather, they exist in a range of probabilities, waves of probability, as Max Born, the German physicist, once said. So outside of that fact, there's really nothing there. They're just statistical probabilities of particles existing in certain locations. So if they aren't being observed, they can't be thought of as having any real existence, either duration or position in space. So it's only in the presence of the observer, that is when you go back and get a drink of water, that the mind actually sets the scaffolding of these particles in place. And it's not until the mind actually lays down the threads somewhere in that haze of probabilities that's described by the uncertainty principles, can they be thought of as being either here or there, or of having actual position or a physical reality. Indeed, it's here where biocentrism suggests a very different view of reality. Most people, both in and outside of the sciences, imagine the external world to exist on its own with the appearance more or less that resembles what we see outside us, or what we see ourselves.
Lanza began his scientific career in biology and medicine, particularly in cloning and stem cell research.
It also becomes clear why the laws of the universe itself are fine-tuned for the existence of life. So until we recognize the universe in our head, attempts to understand the world remain a road to nowhere. So scientists fail to recognize those properties of life that make it critical for our existence. So the view of the world in which life and consciousness are bottom line to understanding the larger universe is called biocentrism. And it revolves around the way our consciousness relates to a physical process. It's a vast mystery that I've pursued my entire life with a lot of help along the way. So I've come to conclusions that would shock many of my colleagues and predecessors, placing biology above the other sciences, in particular physics and chemistry, in an attempt to understand a theory of everything that has eluded these other disciplines. We're taught since childhood that the universe is divided into two entities, ourselves and that which is outside of us.
He was a key figure in pioneering technologies that led to therapeutic cloning and the development of some of the first human stem cell lines approved by the US government.
So animal or human eyes, according to this view, are merely clear windows that accurately let in the world. So if the personal window ceases, such as in death, or is painted black, such as in blindness, that in no way should change the continued existence of this external reality. So a tree is still there, the moon still shines, whether or not you're looking at them. And they may have an independent existence. True, a dog may see autumn maple in shades of gray, can't see color, or an eagle may be able to perceive greater detail. But most creatures, according to this way of thinking, basically apprehend the same object, the same reality, which persists even if no eyes are observing.
His contributions in regenerative medicine have been groundbreaking, especially in the potential treatment of degenerative diseases and organ failure.
So this seems logical. Self is commonly defined by that we can control. So I can move my fingers, but I can't wiggle your toes. The dichotomy then is based largely on control and manipulation. So the basic biology, however, tells us that we don't control most of the trillions of cells in the body any more than we do control a rock or a tree. So consider everything around you right now, me up here at the podium, your hands, your body. Language and custom all say that that's outside us in the external world. But you can't see anything through the vault of bone surrounding your brain. Everything you see and experience right now, your body, the walls, the ceilings of this room, are an active process that's occurring in your mind. You are this process. You're not just the part that you control.
Yet what makes Lanza especially unique is his move from biology into cosmology and consciousness studies.
But this issue of is it really out there predates biocentrism. Again, once you fully understand that there's no independent external universe out there outside of biological existence, the rest more or less falls into place. So where exactly is your refrigerator? Where in the universe is it located? So start with everything that's currently being perceived. This room, for example. We all think it lies in the external world. But we've all already seen that nothing can be perceived that isn't already interacting with our consciousness. So since the images aren't imaginary, it must physically be happening somewhere. So the human physiology textbooks are very clear about this. They say, that the eye responds to particles that deliver little bits of energy that are, hit the retina or photoreceptors, and then they're channeled back through these heavy-duty cables to the back of the brain, where the perception of the images actually occurs physically.
As the conversation progresses, the podcast explores how modern technology, like AI-enhanced image processing, has allowed enthusiasts to revisit old data sets.
Does that mean that we never went? No. But then it gets weird when you find out that Wernher von Braun was a fucking Nazi.
Who?
Wernher von Braun, the guy he was the head of NASA. He was the guy who organized the moon landings, and he was the head rocket guy. That guy was a legit Nazi. Like, he was wanted by the Simon Wiesenthal Center said that if he was alive today, they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity. They would hang the 5 slowest workers every day in front of his Berlin rocket factory. Oh yeah. No, 100%.
Jesus.
I mean, that's what they did. What they did was they took this thing, it was called Operation Paperclip, where when we won World War II, they took all the top Nazi scientists and they secretly brought him over to America. And they did it on the down low so that no one would think like, hey, why do we have a guy named Werner von Braun running the American space program? Well, it's because the Nazi scientists were insanely advanced.
They discuss claims that some newly reviewed images show geometric shapes and shadows inconsistent with natural formations, possibly hexagonal tiles or even pipe-like objects half buried in volcanic terrain.
There's a creative spark that comes from nowhere. That, the painting Starry Night on the back of my phone. Is this logic? No. Is that what he saw? No. Although I can identify the day and the time of day when this image was in his head that he painted. It's,
Because you know the geographical location.
no. Even without knowing I could find out what latitude it is, and it turns out it corresponds with where he was. It's the phase of the moon and the location of Venus at that angle relative to the horizon. You can nail that. And so I got it for June 21st, 1889. Turns out that is the year he painted, and he was in, northern, I forgot where he was, north of France somewhere. And so I can recreate that. But, so there's some basics of it that are factual. The rest, clearly, the sky doesn't have curlicues in it, all right? And I'm told where he painted this, there is no town, because there's a town in front. So he made up a lot of stuff that's in this picture.
In a wide-ranging and speculative conversation, the podcast delves into the mysterious legacy of the Soviet space program and its lesser-known explorations of Venus.
I think you do have to be a little bit discerning on what you hear, but it is frustrating, and that's where a lot of these conspiracy guys, they think they know more than they do, because you have to come to the realization that you're probably never going to know the real answer with a lot of these things. Very likely. I mean, some of them come out many years later. We're talking about like Gulf of Tonkin, right? Or Operation Northwoods. Many years later it comes out. But, there's a good likelihood that I'll never know the truth on stuff I read a lot about.
I think with the moon landing, it's way more likely that we went to the moon, but that some of the footage is fake. And I think they probably did that because it's incredibly difficult to film things on the moon. And I think they filmed some stuff in test runs and then tried to pass that stuff off.
Should have brought their iPhone.
They didn't have it back then. They had these cameras that they had in the center of their chest. I think
What if they would have been taking a selfie on the moon?
Yeah, the kidding.
Snapchatting it.
You'd have to take your suit off and then you would die. They didn't have a camera that you could put in front of you.
Well, maybe they have one of those clicker buttons they could have with their big gloves on, and they put the thing out, and then they click it, and then boom, Snapchat, Wi-Fi on the moon.
He finds it fascinating, a moment of triumph for humanity, but also a possible example of government orchestration during the Cold War.
Well, that's what they said. Well, it was that they did it remotely. That's how they captured the video of the lunar module leaving the surface of the moon and panned up and watched it go. That they did all that remotely. It's all... There's some squirrely footage. You ever see the video of them jumping around? It looks like they're on trampolines.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Like they're just bouncing straight up in the air. You're like, well, what the fuck is that? How come the physics are different in different flights? Like in some of the flights, like Apollo 11, they're barely getting off the ground.
Isn't it one where they're walking, but they're kind of going like that?
Well, there's ones like that, and then there's also ones where they fall down. It looks like they're getting yanked up by wires. I think it's entirely possible that some of that stuff was faked. But I think it's way more likely that they actually went to the moon than they didn't. But it's way sexier to think that they faked the whole thing. It's fun. It's fun to think they faked the whole thing. That everybody was quiet about it. And, Neil Armstrong gave this real cryptic speech on the 25th anniversary of the moon mission saying that, there are hidden truths what is the exact quote that he said? Some of the great truths that could be revealed, removing some of truth's hidden layers. Like
what if he was giving it away?
It was real cryptic.
Rogan starts with what we know. In 1969, NASA supposedly sent men to the moon.
Truth protective layers. Like, I don't even understand what that means. The press conference is one of the more fascinating things. If you watch the press conference, again, I was balls deep in this stuff for years. The press conference from 1969 when they returned from the moon is one of the most cryptic, weird things you'll ever see. These guys look like they just stole something and they're being questioned. I've never seen a video where people look like they're more full of shit than that video of the press conference from 1969. It's weird, man. It's weird. They're like fidgety and looking nervous, like they're getting away
So
with
they
something.
didn't do it then.
They might have done it. They might have been forced to say some things that they didn't want to say, and that could be part of it.
Absolutely.
You know, they could have done it, but there's a lot of weirdness with the moon landing.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you wanted to have like a conspiracy that to wrap your head around that's exciting, it's one of the best ones.
They landed, walked around, planted a flag, then returned to Earth, all using technology with less processing power than a modern phone.
The
Really,
fact
but
that we haven't been
who
back-
benefits from it?
The United States government did because it showed military superiority
Already
over the
over Russia.
Russians, so we
Yeah,
were able
okay.
to do that.
Sure.
It also, you know, it was the Nixon administration. People were just flat out full of shit.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they were just lying to people left and right back then.
That's government, though.
Yeah, but even more so then because it was unchecked. There was no media.
Social media.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing that would expose them for this. And this stuff, they would air it on TV once in 1969. You never see it again unless
Yeah.
you watched it on film. There's no YouTube where you can go back and watch the astronauts on trampolines video. That's my favorite one. You watch that and you go, what in the fuck is happening there? These guys are bouncing up in the air. Like, how are they doing that? Like, they never did. If you watch Apollo 11 when they were moving around on the surface of the moon, it's just like they're moving in slow motion. And then you go to whatever it was, like Apollo 14 or 15 when they were doing the trampoline thing. They're fucking flying through the air.
That, to him, raises questions. He's not saying it didn't happen.
And like their feet are hidden. Look at this. Watch these guys bounce up in the air. It's like they're on some sort of wire, like they're being yanked up into the air.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what the fuck are they doing? And they're playing, like falling down, and it's very weird. But it could have been that they were really on the moon, and these guys were fucking cowboys and yahoos, and they wanted to bounce around.
Oh, you were posting those videos.
Yeah, I
back
posted
in
those
the day.
videos back in the day. Yeah, I had a debate on Penn Jillette's radio show with a guy who's an astronomer. And he wasn't willing to admit a lot of stuff that was a fact, like the fact that Wernher von Braun was a Nazi.
Well,
and
why does the flag look so still there?
Well, the flag had a wire, first of all, on the top of it that stiffened it up to make it. But there's videos of the flag moving in a non-existent breeze, which is weird too. And they try to make some logical explanations for why the flag could be moving in a vacuum, and some of it makes sense, but some of it doesn't. It could have been that they were using that to simulate what it would be like, because they definitely filmed a lot of simulations. They did a lot of that because they wanted to prepare the astronauts. It's entirely possible that some of those simulations got passed off as being an actual video of them on the moon.
Sure.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Or they faked the whole fucking thing.
He just believes it's worth asking. How did they calculate the perfect trajectory? How did they broadcast live from the moon? And why haven't we returned with the same boldness in recent decades?
So the question is like, well, were they really Nazis, or were they scientists that were under the boot of the Nazi administration? I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not around then.
Yeah.
But I do know that these are the people that were the head engineers and the people that designed it. Wernher von Braun himself was saying how impossible it was just years before they did the moon landing and years before Operation Paperclip, that it was impossible to go to the moon, or how ridiculously impossible it would be. But technology advanced from then to when 1969 happened to when they did it. I stopped saying that we never went to the moon because I really don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And that's a big part of understanding these conspiracies. It's like,
hard.
You have to really know, how much do I know about rocketry? How much do I know about aerospace? Zero.
Yeah.
So if I'm running around saying I don't believe people went to the moon, what is it based on? It's based mostly on ignorance, speculation, and the excited feeling that comes with trying to uncover a conspiracy.